on the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our family and our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again.
Welcome to our monthly AAA podcast, Affinity, Allie, and Annette on the road to good storytelling with your hosts, Allie Spooner and moi coming live from Mexico.
All right. Well, I'm Alice Spooner, and I write with Affinity. I touch on many genres from romance to paranormal. Most recently, my focus has been on writing stories based on, can't even read my own writing. Goodness gracious. On the adventures of my characters and building elements of intimacy into their daily lives. I hope you enjoy our podcast and have an opportunity to meet some new authors and learn more about authors who may be your favorites. We appreciate your support and invite you to visit Affinity Rainbow Publications to check out our books.
And I'm Annette Maury. I'm also with Affinity Rainbow Publications, and I write in pretty much every subgenre that you can think about, and I'm really thankful to have a very loyal reader base. And hopefully, once again, as Allie said, you check out some of the other Affinity authors. Today, we do have another Affinity author, so it's Affinity Author Day today in our podcast.
All right. So each month we'll invite a special guest or guests to join us as we discuss various topics of interest to writers and readers. We'll invite our guests to do a short reading and then follow with questions and answers on the featured topic, while encouraging them to do at least one giveaway to our audience. And today we have Miss Glenda Poulter with us.
Yeah,
Hello.
this month the topic is multi-generational love stories, and we're welcoming back the author Glenda Poulter to talk about her new book, The Girl with the Violin. Fabulous, fabulous story. It's very touching, and I think it's one of my favorites that she's written.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely
you.
beautifully written. All right, so following our podcast, we'll upload to a newly created YouTube channel and hope you'll consider subscribing so you never miss a future podcast.
I have the pleasure of introducing Glenda. Glenda has been writing poetry, short stories, and novels since she was 10 years old, well over a half a century. Slice of life novels with women who love women as her main characters are her specialty. Strong women with human weaknesses and foibles populate her stories along with their sometimes quirky friends. Her past published works include Never Too Late, Welcome Home, Out of the Past, and now The Girl with the Violin. Glenda lives in central North Carolina with her longtime partner, Lisa, and the felines that rule their lives. She is the proud mother of a daughter and son and doting grandmother of two. Other interests include collecting seashells, the fiber arts, crochet, knitting, quilting, reading, and photography. Glenda seldom meets a stranger and strives to leave everyone she encounters with a smile. Glenda has an affinity with the ocean, and she is sure she was a mermaid in a previous life. Its gift of seashells calls her name on a regular basis.
That's awesome. So how far are you away from the beach?
About 2.5 to 3 hours, according to which beach we're going. Excuse me, we're going to the Crystal Coast. It's about a 3 hour drive. If we go out to Nagsat, it's about a 4.5 hour drive. So it's not a day trip anymore. When we were younger, it was a day trip. Now it is not. Now we have to make plans on staying overnight because I'm too old to try to do it all in one day anymore.
I hear you. I hear you. You get there, and by the time you get there, you're too tired to look for seashells.
Exactly.
All right. So without further ado, Glenda, if you're ready, go ahead and take us away and give us your reading.
Thank you. Aunt Freddie, do you remember Grace and Taylor? They came to visit me the other day. Freddie looked up from the sandwich Pepper had set in front of her. Her face lit up when she saw Grace. She had her hand out and Grace went and squatted beside her. Freddie put a hand on each cheek and gave her a light peck on the lips. My Evie has come back to see me, she said, pulling Grace into an embrace. You came back. Freddie, I'm Grace. Grace gently removed Freddie's arms from around her. Evie is my great-grandmother. She came with me today. Do you want to meet her? Pepper is my great-great-niece. Freddie returned to her sandwich. Evie sat in the chair next to Freddie's. She sat in silence while Freddie ate. After a few minutes, Freddie turned to her. You're old, she said. So are you, Evie answered. Who are you? Freddie had a confused look on her face. She looked from Evie to Grace and back again. Grace sat down on the other side of Freddie and took one of her hands. Freddie, this is Evie, your old friend. Freddie shook her head. No, you're Evie. She pointed at Evie. She's too old. Celia put her hand over her mouth and turned away. Taylor was grinning and patting her on the shoulder. Pepper turned and looked out the kitchen window. Even Evie was trying not to laugh. Thanks, you guys. Leave me stranded, Grace said, trying not to roll her eyes. You're old too, Evie said, putting a hand on Freddie's arm. We're both old. But Evie is young. Freddie stood up and held her hand out to Grace. Come see my jigsaw puzzle. Remember how we used to put them together all the time? Mama and Daddy kept them at our house because your daddy thought they were a waste of time. There are those words again, waste of time, Grace thought. Why were things that were enjoyable a waste of time? Grace took Freddie's hand and let her lead her into a dark paneled room with a large table in the center. A jigsaw puzzle about half finished on it. The picture was of a large red barn with sunflowers prominent in the foreground. Grace heard a sharp intake of breath from Evie. What's wrong, Grams? Cecilia asked. That's the same puzzle we were putting together when Daddy forced me to marry Dean. It's the only one she'll work on, Pepper said, and it's out of print. When I found that out, I took a picture of it completed and found a company online that makes jigsaw puzzles out of photographs. I've had a dozen made. She pointed at a shelf. It held stacks of puzzle boxes. When one wears out, I replace it with one of those. Have you tried to give her a new one, a different one, Taylor asked? Yes, until you've seen an elderly woman throw a temper tantrum worse than any 2-year-old could, you haven't been to hell yet. You sit there, Freddie pointed to the other side of the table. Grace obediently sat down and waited for Freddie's next move. Freddie handed her a puzzle piece. That was the piece you couldn't figure out where it went last time we worked on this. Can you figure it out now? Evie went to stand beside Grace. Pepper moved a chair over for her to sit down. Evie smiled her thanks as she lowered herself into the chair. She held her hand out for the puzzle piece. But before Grace could give it to her, Freddie grabbed it back. No, not her. You find where it goes. She shoved the piece back at Grace and looked at Evie. Go away, old lady. I will not, Evie said. You need to learn to share. Maybe I can help her figure out where it goes. You mind your manners. Freddie's mouth fell open and everyone but Evie held their breath. Evie took the puzzle piece back and studied it. You sounded just like my mama, Freddie said. She grinned. You must be a friend of my mama's. Did you know her, Miss Addie? She knew everyone in town. Yes, she did, Evie said. Why don't you and I talk about your mama and let these young'uns go visit? We can work on the puzzle together if that's okay with you. Freddie nodded and looked over her shoulder at Pepper. Taylor, and Cecilia. Grace stood and joined them. Freddie made a sweeping motion toward them. You children go entertain yourself. This lady and I have things to talk about. That's from one of my favorite scenes in the book.
That I agree. That was one of my favorite scenes in the book. Yeah, the whole "you're old" that was priceless.
A saucy lady.
Yeah,
Yes.
saucy lady. So,
Yeah.
Glenda, what was your inspiration for writing The Girl with the Violin?
It's a little bit of a long story, but I'll tell the cliff notes of it. Back before my mother passed away, she made each of my siblings and myself a notebook with our past in it. You know, I put pictures up to her present. And then also pictures that she's collected over the years from my grandmother and grandfather's past. One of the pictures was of a young lady holding a violin. And I said, Mom, who is this? Who played the violin? Because my daughter is a talented violin player. And Mom said, that's your grandmother. And I looked on the back of the picture and it said my grandmother's name and it said age 13. And that picture stuck in my head for years. And several years ago during NaNoWriMo, I remembered the picture and the story just kind of came to me. Grandmother was terribly mentally and emotionally abused by my grandfather. And I wanted to give her a happy ending that she didn't have the privilege of when she passed away when I was 25. So that's kind of where that's part of where this story came from. Violins intrigued me. Like I said, my daughter's a talented violin player, and I tried. It wasn't pretty. uh, just seeing grandmother with that violin when I never knew she played a musical instrument at all, because granddaddy wouldn't let her. He said it was a waste of time. So that's basically where the story inspiration came from.
Nice.
Okay. Well, like your last book, The Girl with the Violin has characters across the generations, including octogenarians. They were very compelling characters to root for, in my opinion, but I wonder if you believe they will resonate with the masses. Why or why not?
They do. Evie and Freddie kind of represent all the women who love other women who were never allowed to show that.
Mhm.
They were kept apart through draconian measures in some cases force. And I hope that my readers will see them and honor them in their lives and in their memories. So whether they actually are compelling to the readers, I hope they are, for my grandmother's sake, for the other women's sake who didn't get to live their lives the way they chose to live them. We're so lucky now that we have those choices. My grandmother had a friend, I can't remember the friend's name, but I believe it was Ethel, that when granddaddy went home, she spoke on the phone to for hours on end. If granddaddy was home, it was, hi, how are you? Yes, I'm fine, goodbye. Click. That was the whole phone call because granddaddy wouldn't let her be on the phone, and especially not to this one friend. And I've always wondered,
Mhm.
were they more than just friends? And that curiosity is also part of why I wrote this book. I kind of put grandmother into Evie's shoes. Even though Evie wasn't the one playing the violin in the book, Evie and my grandmother are very much alike in many, many ways.
Yeah.
So I hope that they are compelling to the readers, if for no other reason than they can honor our past generations.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah. I mean, they were compelling to me. I mean, they were definitely characters you can root for. In fact, they were my favorite characters in your
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
I, I write constantly, and of all the writing I've done since I was 10 years old, Evie and Freddie are by far my favorite characters. They're the ones that will live with me through the rest of my life, whether that's 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road. Evie and Freddie are going to be right here all the time. And I think part of that is because I doted on my grandmother. So to me, this is a very special story.
Yeah. It's a contemporary novel, but it has historical elements because you go back and forth in time and tell the story, their story through time, which was I thought a very interesting way to handle it. Your book also touches on a very serious issue, dementia, but it has a surprising twist. So tell us what inspired you to include that particular piece in the story.
Well, I struggled with why Freddie hadn't tried to contact Evie. And so my sister at the time was going through dealing with dementia with her ex-father-in-law. And I don't remember if he had what kind of dementia he had. It wasn't Alzheimer's, but I don't know what it was. But she was struggling, and I kind of did some brainstorming with her. She and I aren't close, but one time we talked about dementia, and when it came time to me trying to figure out why Freddie didn't try to contact Evie, dementia just seemed to be the answer to that. And so I did some research. Research is my second name. I love doing research. And there is a dementia that is caused by traumatic life events. And sometimes, and it's rare, but sometimes that dementia can be halted. It can't turn around. It will never go away. It will always be there, but it can be halted to a certain extent if things in the trauma are handled, like Evie reappearing in her life. So I took a lot of creative license there because I'm not a medical personnel, and I didn't really have anyone I could talk to one-on-one. So I kind of made my own medical diagnosis there. But I thought it was interesting when I did do the reading that some traumatic dementia can be halted and the person can go back to living close to their normal life.
Suspension
And
of
for
disbelief. I love it.
Yeah.
yes.
Well, in their story, there's actually two love stories in The Girl with the Violin. Do you want to share why you chose to write about both?
When I first started writing the story, I tried to write strictly about Evie and Freddie, and there just wasn't enough there. And I don't remember who I was talking to. It's probably my daughter because she's my muse in a lot of ways. And I, she's who I call when I say, "Is this sentence grammatically correct?" So I think she is who I was talking about. And she says, "Well, Mom, bring in the younger generations and tell their story through the younger generations." And Grace and Taylor are from my daughter's age group. So she was kind of the instigation for that part of the story. Although she's non-binary, uses she and her pronouns, but she's non-binary. Uh, uh, she kind of walked me through how Grace and Taylor might be feeling and things they were going through. So I kind of almost have to give my daughter the second chair in the authoring of this book, although I did all the writing. She answered a lot of questions and inspired me a lot. So thank you, Casey. You know, but I just thought it with my daughter, she helped me see how having the younger generations from Grace and Taylor being the youngest through Cecilia and Marie and up to Evie and Freddie, they balanced each other out. And the book needed that balance.
Yeah,
And we need to see Grace and Taylor grow from the beginning of the book to the end through some of Taylor's traumatic experiences with her own family to when they finally are able to settle down at the end. So that's where they came from. And I like Grace and Taylor too. They're feisty.
Okay.
So, I mean, you talked about research before in terms of your research with dementia, but you also had those flashbacks that dealt with some historical components that were kind of interesting. How much research did you have to do with that, particularly Frankie's involvement in World War II, which was kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
Freddie. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
sorry, Freddie.
the Women's Air Force, I can't, my brain is on hold today. I apologize. But the women who ferried the planes from one point to another for the Army and the Army Air Force at the time intrigued me. There's been a lot of novels written about them, so I didn't want to write another one. But I also didn't want to go into the medical field because there's been a lot of novels written about that also. So that was why I had her do the flying, and it also gave Dean an easy way to traumatize Evie. Um, as for research, like I said, it's my middle name, and mid-century, 20th century history resonates with me. I've on my own since I was old enough to know it existed, have studied from the beginning of World War II through the Cold War and lifestyles, basically, and why things happened the way they did and how people lived with those things. I have a bookcase full of books. You may see the bookcase behind me. It's got 2.5 shelves that are just books about mid-century America. So I didn't have to go far for my research. I had read a lot about it already, but Google and I are best friends also. I'm just careful about what I read on Google because some of it is not correct. But I enjoy research, and my partner teases me. She teases my friends, don't give her new ideas, please, because I'll never see her again. Because I dive headfirst, it's a rabbit hole for me. I get interested in a certain aspect of the era, and I go into a rabbit hole. So the research for me was not hard at all. It's something I dearly enjoy doing about almost anything. But that, for some reason, that era, that was my mother's era. I think that's part of it. Um, it intrigues me, and I want to learn more about it. But not just the main events such as World War II and Eisenhower putting in the interstate system. I want to know, how did these people live behind closed doors? What what were was their entertainment? What was their bugaboos? I want to know these things, and I do a lot of creative license with that because, of course, there's nobody left to talk to about it. Now I wish I had talked to my grandmother and my mom more, and I encourage young people to talk to their elders. There's so much to learn, and even if you never write a novel about it, knowing what their history was helps you know about your own history as well and your future. So, like I said, I go down a rabbit hole. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Not a problem. I know that the photo that is used on the cover of your book is very personal to you. How much of the actual story is based on personal experiences of your past? How much of that is included in your novel? I know you've talked quite a bit about your grandmother.
The picture is of my grandmother, and she was a very dear lady that was trampled on in a lot of ways. And I watched it firsthand happen. I watched my granddaddy, I don't know how many times, hang up the phone when grandma was still talking on it. I heard him belittle her if she laughed too loud, if she spoke too loud, if she crossed her eyes wrong. Everything she did was wrong. He belittled her and made her small. And she was already small. She was barely 5 feet tall, and he was 6'4". So it was, quite a difference in size and in power exchange. She had no power in that relationship whatsoever. And I saw that firsthand, and to some extent I lived it because we had to live with my grandparents for a few years, and I was not my grandfather's favorite person because I am loud and I laugh loud and I cry hard, and in his mind I was too much of everything. I think I reminded him too much of her when she was young, because mom said that when she was younger, when mom and my aunt were children, grandmom had a big laugh. She told jokes, and it was all just washed away from her by this mean old tree trunk of a man. And so, while it may not be my personal experiences, I saw it firsthand. And a little bit, I lived it. And Mom tell me he did the same thing to her and my aunt. My aunt, fortunately for herself, was already a quiet spoken woman, so she didn't get trampled on. But my mother was like my grandmother, and like me, we were too much. And he made sure we all knew we were too much. And Mama couldn't get us out of that house fast enough. She hated having to leave us there in the first place, but she couldn't get us out of the house. And I had started retreating by the time she did. And she said, "No, you be yourself. You laugh loud if you need to laugh loud." And Mama had her faults, but one thing she didn't take us away from ourselves, like her father did her and my grandmother. So I have a visitor of a cat, so I don't know if she's gonna try to get up here with me or not. But I can't say it was personal experience that brought me this book or just knowing my grandmother's history, but it is a very personal book. This book is near and dear to my heart. I'm sorry, I have a cat trying to close my computer.
Yes, those darn cats. They'll get involved in everything, won't they? So,
Charlie just doesn't like me talking to somebody she can't see.
yep,
So
I get it.
she has to get up here and protect me.
So how important
Sorry about that.
is happily ever after endings to your novels? And do you think The Girl with the Violin meets that standard?
I think every book, not every book, but I think most books should, to some extent, have a happy ending. Even if it may not seem that way at first, I hope what people take away from it is that there is a happy ending. The end of the book isn't where it says the end. Just like our stories aren't. When we hang up from this call, it's not the end because we all continue to live, and characters do that too. But we don't want to see them end on a sad note. And so I try to always make sure that to some extent there's something happy at the end of my book so people have something to look forward to in their own lives. And when I first wrote the book and I had sent it out to beta readers and to my daughter said, "Mom, you can't end here. You've got to have something happy come from what happens at the end of the book." And she and I sat down and we brainstormed, how can I make this a happy ending? And we came up with the ending that it ends with, which I'm not going to give away. Uh, like I said, my daughter is my muse, and we may not speak every day on the phone, but I know she is available if I need her to say, "I'm stuck." So I like happily ever after endings, but I'm also not naive enough to know that that's that's true life. Some books have to have a sad ending, but at the same time, there needs to be something positive in that sad ending, if that makes any sense.
It
But
does.
yeah, I'm a sucker for happily ever after books when I read and when I write. So I hope that people will think The Girl with the Violin has a happy ending because I feel like it does.
I think it was happy and hopeful. Yes.
Yeah.
Happy,
Hopefully,
hopeful, and realistic. Yeah, I mean,
right.
you had to pull all of those things together, but yeah.
Mhm. And I like hopefully ever after better than happily ever after, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
without hope, why bother? My partner and I have been through a really tough time the past few years, but we have hope for each other and for my family. We have hope for the future generations, even though things are falling apart right now. If we didn't have hope, it would be why bother get out of bed. So I, I hope that my books give other people hope.
Well, speaking of your books, do you have a current work in progress? And if
I
so,
always have
can you share a little
something
bit?
going on. I always have something going on. I challenge myself 4 times a year to write every day for 30 days. I tend to do that anyway, but I have a goal this month. May is one of my writing months. And about 2 years ago, I wrote a book about a social club that's nowhere near ready for anybody else but myself to read it. But the characters, the couples that went to that social club, will not leave me alone. The book went from being a series of 3 to now a series of 12. And I'm writing number 12, working on number 12 this month. Most of them aren't even finished. The characters just say, my turn, my turn. So I have to
Mhm.
stop telling somebody else's story to tell their story so that they'll let me sleep at night. And my partner says if I tell people that, they're going to send a padded wagon for me, but let them. My characters talk to me. And right now I'm writing about a middle-aged couple, about my daughter's age, the mid-40s, named Jacqueline and Desiree, and they go by Jack and Des. And it's how they met, what the social club means to them in their social lives and in their personal lives. And this book is very much it's hard to explain, a dominant submissive type relationship with equality involved as well, which doesn't make sense if you're familiar with the DS lifestyle. But this book needs the equality as well as the power exchange. So that's what I'm working on now. And hopefully they'll let me sleep sometime soon.
Well, that sounds interesting. So hopefully we have something to look forward to from you in the future. Anything else you want to share with the audience out there?
Well, the book I'm hoping to send to Affinity next is actually out of the past, one I wrote back at the beginning of this century. And it's a special book to me, too. A lot of research went into it. And I have self published it, and it's still available as an ebook, but I'm about to pull it because it needs some editing to bring it up to mid 20th century, 21st century, because it has flip phones in it, and very little text messaging in it. So it needs some fairly extensive editing. That's my next big goal, is to get that editing done and hopefully send it on to Affinity to see what you all think of it.
Right.
So
Out of the past. We'll have to look forward to seeing that.
it's one
Sounds
of my
good.
favorite books too.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on, Glenda, and keep writing. Thank you so much. Allie, anything for you to say final?
Absolutely. We appreciate you joining us today and hearing from you again and uh, keep writing.
And
Thank you. And
Listening
thank
to
you for
those
having
characters.
me.
Yeah.
don't forget to join us next month. We will be talking about novels of people living off the grid because
Yeah.
Allie's book, Dangerous Ice, is coming out in June. It's on pre-sale right now. Also, just to let you know, um, Never Too Late, which is Glenda's first book with Affinity, is on sale all through the month of May. So don't forget to pick that up. And then right after that, pick up A Girl with a Violin. It's a great book. I think you'll very much enjoy it. Thank you all for joining us. And thank you, Glenda, for joining us.